Just hit enter, or
He's thinking about
hit enter. There you go.
it. There we go. He's moving now.
I'll just get the volume going.
I get asked a lot how did I meet my wife. I met her at a comedy club a number of years ago, and I couldn't see her because of lighting. I heard her. She had an amazing laugh. She had an amazing laugh, and it would move around. And I assumed it was a waitress because I didn't think an audience member was just hopping from table to table, you know. So anyway, I asked somebody when I got off the stage. I said, "Oh, that laugh, who was it?" They knew right away it was Tammy. She had this just husky, really just cool laugh. And after 27 years with me, it's gone. I never hear it anymore. But every now and then I'll hear her in the kitchen just laughing, and I'll run in to see what she's laughing at, and it ain't me. So, I just immediately I saw how gorgeous she was, and I was just drawn to her. And she had a 2-year-old son when I met her, and that was November. And I was living in LA at the time. She was living in Ohio, so we developed a relationship. Long distance, and
I need to
I
turn
asked her
it
to
up,
marry me in
Granny.
April at Cleveland baggage
So you
claim
may
because I'm
use
a
that?
romantic guy. Yeah.
You're good.
And she said yes immediately, and she had no idea the baggage she was picking up that day when she said yes.
Can you read it
She
out?
really didn't.
Okay.
And that was April. In May, she got pregnant, and we got married in July, and Ryan was born in January. And I went from single and traveling 50 weeks a year. I was doing comedy clubs and casinos to married and 2 children under the age of 3. And a year later, not even a year to our marriage, it was my first trip into AA. Was well, actually, I went in at 25 years old. I didn't stay. I wasn't near as sick as those people. Yeah, I'm 25, I'm listening to these people, oh my gosh, man, you people are whacked. You know, so anyway, I was still doing cocaine while I was going to the AA meetings, you know, just a desire to quit drinking. You know. So anyway, I'm 31 years old, and on July 6th, I told my wife I need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. My father, I was 2 years into to my AA journey when my father asked me one day. He said, "What was the catalyst that?" Because my dad wrestled with alcohol his entire life, and he knew that alcoholics just don't walk into Alcoholics Anonymous because people are laughing and having a good time. Hey, why don't you just check it out? Something had to happen, and I told him the truth. I beat my 6-month-old son in the crib. Ryan was born in January, and on July 5th, the day after the July 4th, that evening at 3 o'clock in the morning, he was crying, and I couldn't get him to stop, and I pounded on him. And Tammy sat on the end of the bed and fed him. And in the middle of all of that rum and cocaine, it hit me that my son got beat because he was hungry, and the shame that washed over me. And I just didn't think it was going to get any better. So I looked at Tammy and said, if you don't take me to Alcoholics Anonymous, I won't go. And if I don't go, we can't be married. We're not even married a year. And she's got her husband telling her. She already had 1 child with another guy. Now she has another child with a guy. I can't imagine the fear that washed over my wife that night. Mm-hmm. But then when you're a selfish, self-centered, narcissistic pig, you don't think of those things. So she took me to Alcoholics Anonymous the next day, and they told me to pray. I said, to what? My father told me when I was 14 years old there was no God. My dad took the time to sit me down and give me his view on the universe at the age of 14. And at that time I was an avid baseball player. I won't go into details on that, but I just lived and breathed baseball. By the time I was 19 years old, I haven't touched a baseball probably since I was 20. I threw it back in God's face. I became an atheist on that day. I wouldn't say I was an educated atheist. I couldn't defend the position. I probably couldn't defend it today. I've listened to every argument you could have on either side of it, and there's arguments for all of it, I guess. I don't know. All I know is that I didn't believe in God, and I lived my life for me, and everything about it was about me. And now I'm 31 years old. I got a wife and 2 kids. I could tell people all the time, young man, I said, you can be single, and you can live a sinful life, a really deep sinful life as a single man, but nothing will draw out the bankruptcy of your life quicker than getting married. and being with another human being. And then those small children who love you unconditionally will really draw you out and on who you are and how deep it goes inside you. And I sat there and in those meetings, and they told me, you lie, you die. It's a program of honesty. I couldn't believe in God, but I could sit there and I would tell the truth. I'd raise my hand and I'd go, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like you. I was trying to get fired from a 12-step program, actually. I was kind of hoping somebody would come over and go, you know what, you've been here a while, nobody likes you, you know. I was angry, bitter, jaded, and cynical. I really was. And I got to tell you, that's the first place I saw the face of God, because they accepted me as I was. As bitter and jaded as I was, these people, somebody would always walk over to me and go, hey man, we've been watching you. You know, it gets better. And I'd go, shut up, it never get better. And I really was. I was a cynic at the core of me. And I've never met a cynic that thinks he's a cynic. I never have. You go to somebody and go, why are you so cynical? Hey, I'm just keeping it real. Just keeping it real, man. Life sucks. Wow. That's inspiring. So I went to those meetings. I kept going because they told me to go. And they said to pray. I said, to what? They said, find something in the universe bigger than you. And I just couldn't get my head around that, because there was nothing in the universe bigger than me. And I heard years later that there's no smaller package than a human being wrapped up in himself. And I was about as small as you could get, because it was all about me. And that's the way I lived. I tried to do it. And then God put it on my, I didn't know God. I didn't have a relationship with God, but I believed to read. I started reading. I never read a book my entire life. Until I hit the age of 31, I got sober. It's amazing when you're not nursing hangovers and worrying about how to stay out of jail long enough. You know, you got spare time. You know, and a man can only bowl so many frames. So I started reading, and I started with Road Less Traveled. And I remember the opening line of that book: "Life is difficult. When it can be accepted as such, it no longer becomes difficult. It just becomes it. It's a series of problems that need to be solved." So that's what I realized. That my life was a series of problems that needed to be solved. So I started reading books on how to solve the problems. It started with self-help, and I started with John Bradshaw's stuff on family dynamics. I figured my dad was an alcoholic, my brother was an alcoholic, and I'm an alcoholic, so I got to see maybe there's something connection there. So I started reading about, and I found in John Bradshaw's stuff, it was interesting, that in a dysfunctional family, and ours functioned, they all function. There's better ways to function. And in my family, they said the baby, the youngest, which is me, is normally the comedian, the good-natured one. And I found out those are the ones that get the worst beatings until we get our timing down. You know? You walk into the, hey, got one for you. Bam! Okay, maybe next week. You know. So that made sense to me. That resonated with me. So I read the family dynamic stuff, and then I got into the codependency, Melody Beatty stuff, and I started reading New Age spirituality. I figured maybe there was something to this higher power. I didn't quite get my head around it, because I would look at people after 4 or 5 years in the program, and they'd say, you need to get that higher power thing. And I go, what is that? And they go, well, it's whatever you want it to be. It's whatever you can grasp onto. You know, and I'm going, well, look, if I'm making up a deity, doesn't that make me delusional? I mean, either God exists or he doesn't. I get that, but I'm not going to sit there and make one up. Because if I'm going to get on my knees when life happens, and I mean life, where there's a loss of a job, a loss of a loved one, or cancer, and I'm going to get on my knees and pray to a deity, and at what point do you pray to this thing you made up, and you go, your brain just goes, you made this up. What comfort comes from that? I'm not going to make something up. So that started me, and I got into New Age Buddhism and all of that, and I tried, I dabbled in all of it. I meditated, I owned, I did the chants, I did the New Age, where you affirm yourself. You walk in front of a mirror and you tell yourself that you're valuable and you're handsome and people like you, and I couldn't even look myself in the eye. It was so pathetic. I'm like, God, this works for people. I'm like, whatever. I just wanted an answer to a bunch of questions, and I kept getting questions, and it didn't matter what I bought or what I read or what I saw or what I heard, and it would resonate, and it would resonate inside me. I remember listening to a speaker one day, and he had a great talk on relationships, and he said that his relationships prior to Alcoholics Anonymous, or prior to a relationship with God, was pretty simple. He said, I had a bag of tricks, or a routine that I did with every girl I ever dated. And there were like 8 or 10 things that I would do. I would take her to a restaurant. I would take her to a movie, or a special movie, and I had a place up in the Hollywood Hills that he said that I would go, and I would tell the girl that I was with at that time, you know, I've never taken anybody up here. Ignore the other footprints, but he had a routine, and I listened to this, and I realized prior to meeting my wife, I had a routine. And my routine was a lot shorter than that. I had like 3 or 4 things, and then when conflict would enter the relationship, I would flee. I hated conflict. There was no conflict in our resolution in our home. My dad was the law of the land. You'd come in, and if you disagreed with him, he'd either hit you or throw you or scream at you till you backed off. So I just learned to hate conflict. And Scott Peck said in Road Less Traveled, true love can't even begin till conflict enters a relationship. You cannot have a conflict-free human relationship. You can't. It doesn't exist. Only love can grow from conflict. Everything that leads up to that first moment of conflict, Scott Peck says, was put there by God. It's an illusion put there by God to keep the species going. That's what draws us together. That euphoric feeling that everybody keeps chasing after they get married for 8 years. And I guess it's not the way it was when we were dating. Well, it ain't going to happen. It doesn't exist. And conflict can be simple. I want pizza for dinner. Well, I want Chinese food. Now you got conflict. Now you got a chance. So I hear this, and I'm thinking all I need are new tools. All I need are new tools. And it resonated with me. And I'm thinking, oh man. So I run home and I play the tape for Tammy. I go, listen to this. This is amazing. We listen to it. She's weeping. And I'm thinking, this is great. We're gonna move forward. And she goes, if you want a divorce, be a man and ask for one. What? That's what you heard. And that's what I learned. It's not what I say. It's what she hears me say. Oh, I've been married long enough now. I can say something to Tammy, see her reaction, and go, ooh, what did you just hear me say? So now when I have something I want to play for my wife, I play it for the neighbor's wife, and I go, what did you hear in there? I hated conflict, and apparently God gave me a woman who loves conflict, because every time I would go to another room and say, leave me alone, she'd be right on my hip, following me in the other room. And I punched holes in walls, and I slammed cabinets, I broke dishes, I screamed and I hollered. One night I was putting my son to bed. He was like 6 years old, and he said, Daddy, you win. That was after I stood on a chair in the kitchen, and I yelled at my wife until she fell to her knees. Mm-hmm. I was standing on a stool, yelling down at my wife until she fell to her knees and wept. And I put my son to bed that night, and he says, Daddy, you win. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you win. You yell, Mommy cries, you win. Is there anybody in this room that thinks this is the way I wanted to live my life? Had no idea where that came from. I just wanted answers. And the questions would come, and the answers would come in the form of these little books that I would read. I would read these things, and I'd go, okay, this is it. And I'd go tell Tammy. I go, I got it, baby. I think I got it this time. I got this thing here, and I'm reading it, you know. And I knew I was losing her. And I didn't want to lose it. I just didn't know how to hang on. I just wanted answers. And Tammy would and I was losing work. I was sitting on stages in these comedy clubs now and on a stool. I worked on a stool. I never got up on my feet for like 2 years. I'd sit in the stool and I would look at the floor and I would do the comedy and I would sit there, and at some point I would ask the audience, why are you here? What's the point? And some voice would come out of the back. We just want some jokes. Club owners were calling my agents and managers and they're going, what's with him, man? He used to be funny. Maybe he needs to start drinking again or something. He's just like, he's up there, he's talking about all this stuff, and nobody understands what he's talking about. I just wanted answers, and I couldn't get him at home, and Tammy would go, care about work. Just care about your work. We're losing everything. Because you're losing so much money. We live a lifestyle based upon the money you can earn. I can't earn the money you earn. You signed up for some things in this marriage. I'll do everything else. Just go out and make money. You don't deal with the bill collectors. You're not even man enough to deal with them. If you pick up the phone, you start screaming at them until they hang up. They repossessed the car. She calls me. I'm on the road one day. She goes, they took the car today. You knew it was coming. You could have mentioned it. Your boys stand on that driveway wanting to know why they're taking their daddy's car away. Grow up. And I said, why? What's the point? What difference does it make? I've gone on stage, I've got standing ovations. The next night, same club, same group, same material. They boo me, they throw beer bottles at me. I knew people in LA that had movie deals and sitcom deals, and I heard they committed suicide when they all went away. I knew people that put their life in their marriages, and the husband would walk out on them. The wife would walk out on them. What happens to the human after that? I just wanted some answers. And I asked her, do you ever wonder? She goes, I wonder about what? I go, why you're here, the whole point to everything. Why does it matter? She goes, no, I don't have time. I'm raising a family by myself. I'm dealing with all this other garbage that has been created by you. I just want a man. I want a husband. I want something. I said, that's the point. I'd look at those rooms and I'd see these AA people and they were happy and content and at peace. And I go, why not me? Why not? I did my work. I read all the books. I did all the 12 steps. I did everything. Where's my peace? So I want. Is that too much to ask? I want to have a few beers. I wanted to go out and do my little jokes and raise my kids. I didn't even know why I was so racked up. I had friends going, relax, Jeff, relax. Everything was just, I was this scab. I was a big scab. And something would pick at it and this pus would ooze out. Don't know why. And finally, Tammy asked for a divorce. We're sitting at Toys R Us at a Christmas time about 17 years ago. She says, do you want a divorce? I go, if that's what you want, then. That's how we decided to get to the most life-altering decision a man and woman will ever make. It will affect your life forever. Good, bad, or indifferent. It will have an effect on your children. It will have an effect on your friends, your family, everything. And we decided, like, hey, you want to go to McDonald's for lunch? Yeah, let's go to McDonald's. Want to take out the trash? I'll take out the trash. Want to get a divorce? Yeah, that's what you want, Ben. If you're in a marriage today that's full of acrimony, wait till you get to apathy. There's no more painful human experience that you can experience than apathy, to not care. And it's an epidemic among our young people. Sing it done in there. Can you imagine Adam and Eve coming out into the garden that first day and going, oh, trees. Or, wow. Look at little kids. Everything's new. It's like, wow. We had nothing to divide up. We had filed bankruptcy, lost everything. So we got the paralegal and got some divorce papers. And Tammy gave it to me. She says, I do everything else around here. Why don't you fill out the end of our marriage? And I love this because the Bible says what Satan intends for evil, God will use for good. My biggest character flaw to this day is procrastination. So I said if I was a type A, I would have filled those papers out. We would have been divorced in about a week, and that would have been it. As it was a year and a half into, after she gave me those papers, I still hadn't filled out anything but the names. And a year and a half, I was sleeping in the guest room. We were cordial people. We were polite, bump into her in the hall. We ate meals together. We'd sit in the family room and watch television together. And we existed. It wasn't very loving, but it was existence. And by that time, God had time to move people into my life. And one of them was a Christian businessman who was doing comedy for $100 a week on the road. And I couldn't understand why. And by now, I'm reading Ayn Rand. I figured if materialism is it, if it's just about getting stuff, I'll get stuff. I can get my life back on track. I'll focus on the comedy, and I'll work on getting a career going again. And I still had a fairly good reputation in the club world. And anyway, I decided that that's what I'll do. So I'm working now. I'm focused on this. And now we're golfing, him and I. And I asked him, how do you accumulate wealth? Nobody ever taught me how to accumulate wealth. Wealth. And he said, in order to even enjoy the creation, you have to have a relationship with the Creator. And I thought, boy, that sounds neat. Like New Agey. It sounded New Agey. So I said, where's that? He goes, it's in the Bible. Oh, okay. A couple holes went by. Said something else. I go, that's great. Where'd you read that? He goes, it's in the Bible. I said, stop it with the Bible. He goes, what do you mean? I go, really, who reads the Bible? He said, I do. I go, really? He goes, what's your problem? I go, I don't believe in God. God. Really? God's Word? It's a little archaic, don't you think? He said, well, let's back up. What's in the Bible that you don't think is true? Maybe I can help you out. I go, I don't know. I never read the Bible. He goes, then you're not an atheist. You're a moron. And any man who suffers from an anger problem knows, the hair on your neck stands up, your stomach gets a little tight. I think I want to punch this guy for saying that, But then I would have lost access to some really nice golf courses. And if it's possible for an atheist to have an ethical quandary, I was in one. So I said, how so? He said, I'll give you the short answer. To discount and throw away an infinite God in an infinite universe, you yourself have to have infinite knowledge of the entire universe. It's a self-defeating argument. You cannot defend an absolute negative. What you're denying exists as an omniscient being. In order to deny that, you yourself have to be omniscient. You can't defend it. And I looked at that man and said, what? He said, trust me, Jeff, I say this out of love. You are not smart enough to be an atheist. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't smart enough to figure out if the man was insulting me or not. Because I said to him, you don't know either. He said, I believe I do. And he said, I believe if you open your mind a crack to the God of the Bible and started studying the Bible, the God could flood through that crack in your mind, into your heart, into your soul, and reveal the true universe, the way the universe is set up and aligned and all that. And I said, yeah. He said, I'd like to help you out. I go to a church in Denton, Texas, Tom Nelson's Denton Bible. He said he teaches the Bible. He does not tell you to check your brain at the door. He makes you reach intellectually, and he says, I think you would enjoy that. And I said, will it cost me any money? He goes, nope, I'll sign you up. And then, can I send you a Bible? I go, if it doesn't cost me anything, you can send me whatever you want. So the Bible came, I threw that in a junk drawer, the tapes started coming, and for a year and a half, those tapes came, and we had a friendship. It was basically revolved around comedy and golf. And he never once said to me, I sent you tapes, did you listen to them? I sent you a Bible, did you open it up? He'd end every conversation the same way, hey, how are you and Tammy doing? I go, not too good, Phil. We're going to get that divorce at some point. I got to fill those papers out. For a year and a half. He said, we pray for you every night, me and Carol, my wife. We pray for you guys. And it meant nothing to me. I go, that's great, Phil. He goes, no, I want you to know. We want your marriage to work. And I go, I don't get that, but okay. And he'd say, well, that's the way I think God put you two together for a reason. And I go, yeah, whatever, Phil. It's got to work. So anyway, the year and a half goes by, and Tammy says, we got to fill those papers out. Finally, I filled them out, notarized them. We got them notarized by a notary. We're on our way to the courthouse to drop the papers off to end the marriage. And 10 minutes from the courthouse, Tammy says, pull the car over. We're on the interstate in Phoenix, Arizona. She says, pull the car over. I said, for what? She said, as we pull over, she said, this is wrong. And Tommy Nelson always says, every man needs to get downwind from himself to get a good whiff of the kind of man he is. And I had gotten a whiff of the kind of man I was. I knew that I was bad. There was nothing about me that was redeeming. I couldn't change. I didn't seem to change. And I loved her. I did love her. And I said, you're out. She said, what are you talking about? I said, you're out. We drop these papers off, and we get the divorce. You're out. You've done your duty. You've 8 years with me. You've earned the right to be loved the way you deserve to be loved. I don't know what's wrong with me, babe. I really don't. But I'm trying. I just don't know what I need to read. I don't know what I need to. But you deserve better than me. And she said, I'm not going to do this. Let's go home. Mm. If you're looking for grace, that's what grace looks like, smells like. It is. There's no earthly reason why she said go home. And we went home and we tried. Summer came that year, and she says, I'm taking the kids to Ohio to go with to be with my parents. And while I'm gone, you got to get your life together. If you don't want to do comedy, you don't do comedy. But you got to do something. We're losing the house. We were a couple months out of our mortgage at that point. They were contacting us. And I said, I'll work on it. She gathered up these Bible tapes. Year and a half's worth. They were everywhere. On the fridge, under the... You ladies can imagine. She's been cleaning around them for a year and a half, collecting dust, everything. She gathers them all up, and she brings them into the living room, and she throws them on the floor before she leaves, and she says, you either listen to these things or I'm throwing them out. And that little voice, we all have a little quiet voice inside of us. And by the way, I would like to mention, if I was the devil, and I wanted to wipe God out of the minds of people, of his creation, I would create ambient light to eliminate the awesomeness of the stars. When my son was in Iraq, his first email home was, I can't believe all the stars. This is amazing. Dad, I'm telling you, it's amazing. I'd eliminate the stars. So when you looked up in the heavens, you saw 2 or 3, and you go, what's so amazing about that? And then I'd create the iPod. And I'm not saying the iPod is the devil's creation. All I'm saying is I just create noise that fits inside your head so that God's voice, which is quiet and still, can't be heard. Because one day I'm walking by that pile of tapes, and that little voice says, open one up, and I walk back, and another voice says, there's nothing in there for you, and I start to walk away, and this struggle goes on. And I'd like to ask somebody, where does this come from? Where does this struggle come from? I had never had a problem going to a music store, buying a Bruce Springsteen tape, and pulling it out and putting it in my cassette. Now I've got a bunch of God's words sitting on the floor, and this struggle comes in. It's nothing but biblical trash. That's when at one point my head screamed at me, it's biblical trash. And I start to walk away, and it's like open one up. So I finally just walk over there like it's on fire. And I rip one open, and I throw them on the floor. And it's Ecclesiastes. I couldn't even pronounce it. Ecclesiastes. What is it? Ecclesiastes. I get the Bible out of the junk drawer. The Bible never left the junk drawer, because once you put something in a junk drawer, it never leaves. Until you get a shed. That's a suburban version of a junk drawer. So now I put this tape in from the Ecclesiastes from a pastor in Denton, Texas, that a year and a half, I don't even know when that arrived in the mail, but all I know is it's the first tape. And it starts out meaningless. And I went, what's meaningless? And it went on to talk about Solomon's conclusions and the book of Ecclesiastes. And years later, Christians said to me, the first time I shared this at a church, somebody grabbed me, God used Ecclesiastes? God used the book of Ecclesiastes to lead you to Jesus. I go, I don't understand you. He goes, well, it's a fairly cynical book. I go, well, you didn't know me like God knew me. Trust me. I found Ecclesiastes the most exhilarating thing I'd ever heard. Meaningless. It's all meaningless. Everything is meaningless. There's no purpose. Everything. I was like, and what I got on that first tape was this. Life without God will have no meaning. Without meaning to your life, there's no purpose to your life. Without purpose to your life, you might as well off yourself. And I'm thinking, wow, that's in the Bible? So I ripped open every envelope looking for more Ecclesiastes tapes. There's got to be another one in there. And I put that in there, and this is it. This is another one of Solomon's conclusions. Again, paraphrasing what was in the book by this pastor. But it was, if happiness was an act of human will, we'd all be happy. You ask anybody in this room what you want out of life. I just want to be happy. Well, what is that? How do you define that? If it's the next iPod, the next man, the next woman, the next job, the next car, the next ad infinitum, you're in for a long haul while you're down here on earth. Solomon's conclusions were nothing of this earth will ever give you lasting joy and happiness outside of God. So I'm sitting there listening to this, and I knew this because I did this. I went to the mirror, and I went to affirm yourself. Oh, what a load of garbage that turned out to be. All I wanted to know is I'm listening to this, and something is happening inside of me. And at one point, I wanted to run on the lawn and hold the Bible up. Has anybody read this thing? What a book! I was doing studies in my car, staring with my leg, making notes in my Bible. I almost met Jesus before I met Jesus. I mean, people, I'm running them off the road. They're waving at me one finger at a time. I'm like, I love you too, you know. Wow. I have no idea why there was this moment in my life where God said, this guy's had enough. For the first time, I realized I wanted an explanation for all these years. I wanted somebody to explain to me God, so that I got it, so that I understood it, and it made a difference in my life. But the truth was I needed a revelation from God. Without the revelation, the explanation means nothing. And all of a sudden, everything was starting to change. The way I talked to people, the way I looked at people. I'm talking to my wife on the phone, and I'm going, babe, there's something going on. But she had heard this 1,000 times. It was just another one in a long list of things. And I remember when she came back that summer, and she says, how was your summer? I said, I'm a born-again Christian. She goes, what does that mean? I go, I don't know. I heard the term, you know, and but I wasn't there yet. I listened to, a year and a half's worth of tapes in a couple of months. And I'm down in Texas with my buddy, the guy that gave me the tapes, and we had gone to church. I wanted to meet Tommy Nelson, the pastor, and tell him how amazing I thought he was. And when we got back to Phil's house, he looked at me and he said, when I met you, God put it on my heart, you were looking for something. Have you found it? And all I could think to say to him at that time was, if Jesus Christ is not who he claimed to be, then Solomon was right, suicide. I have nowhere else to go. I've exhausted everything. And he said, can you admit you're a sinner? I go, let's not go overboard. When God gets a man downwind from himself. Admitting you're a sinner is really, yeah, I fall a little short. I gave my life to Christ, all of it. I said, if comedy is what you want me to do, you take it, you do something with it. I'm done. You want me to be married to this woman? I submit to you everything. My best efforts got us 10 minutes from divorce court. You want me to be a father to these boys, then you're going to have to show me how to be a father to these boys and love them. I don't know how. I'm yours. Doesn't mean it's perfect. Doesn't mean I didn't give my life to Christ so that I'd have a bigger house or better car. I gave my life to Christ because I believed it to be true. Didn't stop us from experiencing life. Tammy got breast cancer 12 years ago. She's still alive, and I keep forgetting to mention that. So people will email me when I get home. You never said it. She's still alive. Oh. So I owed the IRS $50,000 when we gave our life to Christ. I never thought I could pay that off. It took me 7 years, but that's not why I believe what I believe. I could have got that from a Tony Robbins seminar. If Jesus Christ is not who he claimed to be, then I'm a dead man. I cling to the cross and the resurrection. I cling to the truth of that. And I don't care what you believe, the last inch is always a leap of faith. And it's not perfect. Tammy started menopause. There are nights, not every night, but there are nights. I lie in bed and dream about the good old days of PMS. Yeah. I can't get the home cold enough for her on some weeks. It's 48 degrees in my bedroom. I got meat hanging off my curtain rods. She'll walk in at 10 o'clock and turn on a 64-bladed fan she installed. I had to bolt the furniture before to keep her from getting sucked through the roof. And she stands in the middle of the room. Why is it so hot in here? Why is it so hot? I can't see her from the fog coming out of her mouth. Oh, and then she wakes me up to feel her night sweats. Is that even necessary? I'm sound asleep. She zips my parka open while I'm laying there. Jeffrey, wake up, feel this. It's disgusting. Look at me. I'm just laying here. There's like a furnace in me or something. Boy, you're lucky you don't have to go through this. You know, I wouldn't if you quit waking me up. I told the kids, watch out, Mom's going through some serious stuff. Like what? Remember those nights you didn't do your homework? She'd get mad and yell at you? She goes, yeah. Be a little different now. She might start crying and then stab you. And one more thing before I go. I want to share this last one. I've been sharing this story for a lot of years. And the first time I shared the part about beating Ryan in the crib. Ryan was 12, and we were at a Gaither event. And God put it on my heart to share that. And I shared that. I was scared to death. And when I got off stage, Ryan walks over to me and he goes, was I that boy you beat in the crib? And I said, you were. Daddy was a different man then. And he put his arms around me and he says, I forgive you for that. And I didn't realize, even now, I mean, it's amazing to me. If more fathers and sons would just, I forgive you. If I went to my father and said, I forgive you, my father would have looked at me and said, for what? It's amazing the power of what happened on that cross. When I read of what Jesus went through to the cross, And as he was up there, he cried out, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do."
Yes.
That goes against